Okay, so I'd just like to say a big thanks to everybody for joining today. This webinar will last about 25 minutes or so, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll know much more about inventory optimisation. So, my name's Tracy Baker, as Bruce just said, and I'm head of demand generation at EazyStock. I'm also a self-confessed inventory optimization geek, and that's because I've been at EazyStock now for just over 3 years, and I spend a lot of my time researching the needs of our customers and also writing about supply chain management and, of course, EazyStock. We also have with us today Peter Drakeley. He is Head of Customer Success at EazyStock, and he'll be around at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So today I want to introduce to you the concept of inventory optimization and explain how it differs from inventory management. And throughout, I'm also going to cover some of the typical supply chain challenges that we see often causing problems for businesses like yours, and explain how EazyStock can help you manage them better. We'll look at the typical features of an inventory optimization tool such as EazyStock and how it can benefit your business. And then, as I said, at the end, there'll be a Q&A session. So let's get to it. Okay, so since the COVID-19 pandemic, which began way back in 2020, and for many, many months now, businesses have faced a multitude of supply chain challenges like never before. So much so that many have made the mainstream media. And we talk to businesses at EazyStock across the globe, and they've all had many of the same problems that businesses such as yours have faced. These have included Brexit, which has been a big issue for the UK and some European companies too. We've had a global container shortage. There's been a big increase in the price of raw materials and a lack of supply of raw materials. And also there was the lorry driver shortage across Europe. So basically, there's been lots and lots of challenges that businesses have had to face, and these challenges have drastically slowed down the supply chain. Oh, and the fuel crisis too. Who can forget that? So, even though supply chain challenges are starting to get better and issues are starting to settle back down in some industries, many businesses we find are still coming to us with these typical challenges that you can see on your screen. Firstly, they're finding it very difficult still to accurately forecast demand, especially in sectors where sales are still quite erratic. And then from a supply side, many businesses are still saying that their lead times are not as reliable as they used to be. And again, that's particularly in industries where there are raw material shortages and production disruption or container shortages, which are set to carry on into the foreseeable future. And with this demand and supply volatility, you often see that it leads to a greater risk of stockouts, which means that you're either going to be facing production delays if you're a manufacturer, or if you're further down the supply chain, you're going to see lost sales and unfortunately unhappy customers. And as a result, many businesses we're finding are starting to purposefully buy and carry more stock and tie up more cash in safety stock to help combat these issues. But that often means that money then gets tied up and it puts pressure on cash flow for businesses. And then obviously the last one is rising logistical costs, which obviously puts pressure on your bottom line and profit margins. So if you're facing similar challenges, and the good news is that you're not alone. These are very familiar stories that we hear all the time. But the companies that are dealing with them best are the ones that are looking for ways to help manage these issues better. And hopefully that's why you're here today, because a great place to start is by reviewing your inventory management processes. Okay, so all of the supply chain issues I've just been talking about have meant that stock management processes have really been in the spotlight over the past couple of years. And in some cases, they're now even a regular boardroom agenda. Many businesses are focusing on building supply chain resilience. It's a real buzzword right now, but they're finding that their current inventory management processes are really beginning to creak. And that's because they're often too basic to cope and too basic to build the supply chain resilience that businesses really want. Um, Often customers come to us either because they're still using spreadsheets to manage their inventory, or because they have a really basic tool to do their forecasting and replenishment calculations. And over the past couple of years, the weaknesses of these tools have really been exposed and really began to show. So we're hearing of more and more businesses that are therefore looking at software to help them. And in fact, I was reading a recent survey by the Materials Handling Institute, and they do a global survey every year of businesses, predominantly in the US and in Europe. And last year, they found that over 45% of businesses are already using an inventory or network optimization tool, and that another 32% are looking to invest in one in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's 77% of businesses in 2 years' time are going to have some sort of inventory optimization tool to support their supply chain. Which leads me on to why we're here today and how EazyStock or an inventory optimization tool can help. So EazyStock basically plugs into your ERP system like Pegasus Opera or any business management tool, and provides advanced inventory management or inventory optimization capabilities. So what is inventory optimization? I hear you say, well, inventory optimization really does differ from traditional inventory management, and it's a subtle difference, but actually it's a very critical difference. So inventory management is the process of managing and controlling inventory. So it's ordering goods into your business, you checking them into the system, maybe tracking them through the warehouse, raising invoices and seeing the goods leave the business. Whereas, on the other hand, inventory optimization is all about focusing on achieving high levels of stock availability whilst ensuring the lowest possible inventory investment. So it's helping you fulfill the demand for your products whilst keeping stock to a minimum. And ultimately, inventory optimization works out what stock to order, how much to order, and when to order it. Okay, so how does this work? How does EazyStock or a typical inventory optimization tool work? Well, EazyStock has a wealth of functionality, and we don't have time to go over it all today. But if you do want to know more, it's much better seen in a demo, and I'm sure if you speak to Bruce at the end of today, he'd be more than happy to show you the system in practice. But as a summary, here's an overview of the system. So EasyStock will connect to your business system, and it will then take daily feed of data, which will include your demand or sales history, your item SKU master data, and what orders are open in your system. It will then look at carrying out automated demand forecasting calculations. It will then move on to optimize your inventory levels or your stock levels. And then it will move on to automating stock ordering or stock replenishment. And you'll end up with a list of recommended orders, which once you agree to and they're confirmed, they then get sent back from EasyStock back into your ERP. So let's take each one in turn. So demand forecasting. Okay, so traditional demand forecasting. So I'm guessing many of the businesses and the people who are listening today are still using spreadsheets to forecast demand. And you know, there's nothing wrong with doing this. Many businesses still do. In fact, many businesses don't do any demand forecasting at all. So if you are doing any type of demand forecasting, you are ahead of the game of some. However, anyone who is manually calculating demand forecasting spreadsheets knows what a time-consuming task this really is, and particularly when you've got a large amount of products to manage. And if you want your forecasts to be accurate, then they obviously need updating regularly, or they're going to go out of date. And also, even the best spreadsheet is going to be prone to some human error. We also find that many businesses who are forecasting base their forecast solely on previous sales history. But what they're missing is that they're forgetting about seasonality. So, taking into account seasonal peaks and troughs in demand. There's also items that are going to be trending, demand's going to be trending up or down. And how do you deal with erratic or lumpy demand, or external macro factors such as, another COVID or Brexit, whatever might happen in the supply chain? If right away your basic forecast needs are going to be much more difficult to do, and you're going to need a lot more time to ensure the accuracy of your forecast if you take all of this into account. Okay, and if your forecasts are inaccurate, then they're inevitably going to lead to over or understocking. Understock, and you can begin to experience stockouts, which is going to lead to potentially lost sales, unhappy customers, and a tarnished brand. As I mentioned earlier, overstocking necessarily isn't the answer, because this often leads to a buildup of excess stock, and this will then, increase your carrying costs. It's going to absorb cash, which can affect your cash flow, use space in your warehouse. And if these items begin to turn obsolete, then you may have to end up getting rid of them at a loss. So, what can inventory optimization do? Well, EazyStock removes the need for these manual calculations, and instead it will automatically forecast demand. And it does this using advanced statistical algorithms or calculations that take into account where your products or your stock items sit in their product life cycle and their associated demand profile. So here we can see a product life cycle. It's a typical one. I'm sure you've all seen something like this before. So when a product enters the market, usually sales or demand will rise. Then it will begin to plateau as it hits the maturity stage, and then sales or demand is going to begin to peter off when it hits decline, and it's going to become more erratic or lumpy as it peters off altogether. So what EazyStock will do is it will identify a stock item's position in this product life cycle and its current demand pattern or demand type. And for each demand pattern, it will assign the relevant statistical algorithm or calculation to ensure it's forecasting demand as accurately as possible. So you can see the 9 different demand types here, and there will be an associated algorithm to forecast demand as much and as well as it can. Okay, so once you've got your demand patterns and demand types taken account of, EasyStock then moves on to automatically check for other factors that can impact a forecast's accuracy. So firstly, it'll look at items and try and identify items with seasonal demand patterns and adjust the forecasts accordingly. So this will help prevent shortages during your peak seasons and expensive surpluses as the demand and the end of the season comes along. It also calculates trends for each SKU, and when it looks and deems that a trend is significant, it will adjust the demand calculations accordingly. And finally, it'll look for any special offers, discounts, or long-term price drops. And these can easily be taken account of simply by adjusting the forecast. So the benefit to you is that you'll have much more accurate forecasts. And of course, these will lead to better replenishment and therefore stock availability. Also, by removing the manual forecasting processes, you're going to improve the efficiency, and your team's going to have more time to spend on tasks that are going to be more value adding, such as talking to suppliers or supporting customers. Okay, so next was looking at optimizing stock levels. So Working out which stock items to order in and what to carry and in what volumes can be extremely time consuming, especially if you're doing it manually. And my husband is a stock manager and he's just moved to a new company. And half his job at the moment is going through paperwork and reviewing previous sales orders. And then from those, trying to decide which stock items he needs to stock a lot of and which ones he can chance not having as much of. It's a really risky business because if a large order comes in and he doesn't have the right stock on the shelf, he's going to get into trouble. Now, a simple way to improve this guesswork, as it is to use a process such as ABC analysis. You can Google ABC analysis and find out a lot about it. But basically, stock managers will use ABC analysis to basically divide up your whole stock or your inventory based on each item's importance or value to the business. So we divide them into category A, B, C, and sometimes D. The idea then is that you can focus your time on ensuring the availability of the A items, which are typically high usage and very important to the business, then your Bs and then your Cs. The point is, though, that this is all manual. And any manual form of stock classification is going to be time consuming. The data is also going to become quickly out of date unless you keep updating the categories. And if you don't do this, then very soon you're going to find that your reordering policies are going to be out of date too, and you're going to be ordering the wrong amounts of each stock item. And what happens then? This is going to lead to overstocking and understocking and all the issues that we looked at previously. So how can EazyStock help? Well, EazyStock uses a smarter form of ABC analysis to recommend optimum stock levels for each SKU in your portfolio. And it does this by taking stock classification much further than ABC analysis, and it automatically classifies stock based on a range of factors. And these include demand types, which we talked about with the forecasting earlier. It'll also look at items value or the cost of goods sold, and also demand dynamics such as pick frequency, the demand types and demand volatility. So with all your items automatically grouped into their relevant category, you can then set service level or stock availability targets for each group, and the system will then automatically adjust the stock levels so that you can achieve those targets. So you may set higher stock availability targets and stock more of items that sell often and are cheaper to carry, such as the bottom right of this quadrant here. Or you may set lower availability targets and hold lower quantities of items that are more expensive and have more erratic sales, which would be in the top left of the quadrant. Either way, the result is that you can optimise the stock levels based on accurate forecasts and your proposed fulfilment or stock availability targets. And again, by swapping spreadsheets for a tool that can do so much more quickly, your team is going to have access to so much more data to base their stock decisions on, meaning that they're more likely to stock items that the business needs and have fewer stock outs. Okay, so on to the replenishment and reordering part of the system. So here's that slide again, and I don't apologise for keep putting it up because we hear time and again from customers prior to having EazyStock that they're usually working out reorder points and reorder quantities manually. And if they do have a stock ordering process that accepts these quantities, they'll upload their reorder points and reorder quantities manually into the system, and then the system will place the orders based on the data they've given it. But as you know, and I've already said, this is really time consuming because it's manual stuff. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way, but you're still going to come up against the same challenges because of human error and because of inaccuracies. And when you come back to human error, time consuming work and inaccuracies, you're going to end up again overstocking or understocking and seeing the same consequences of those things. So in comparison, EazyStock will do all your reordering calculations for you. And it basically generates optimum levels of each stock item by taking into account a much wider range of factors that would be impossible for you to consider manually. These include your current stock levels, the demand forecasts and the product life cycle stages and demand patterns that we've talked about, availability targets and stock classification. EazyStock will also consider supply lead times. So if you find your lead times are getting longer, EazyStock will take note of this and it will automatically bring forward some orders or increase the quantity of some orders. And it can also look at supply constraints, such as making sure that you're taking into account minimum order quantities, etc. And the outcome is that it generates a list of orders and order proposals. And that then means is that your team can start to manage by exception. So, you've got a long list of order proposals. You can look down the list and go, well, I order these items regularly all the time and they're low cost. So I'm just going to tick and take what EasyStock says. I believe the system, tick all these boxes and send them all for purchase ordering. And then, I'm going to look at some of these other orders because they're more expensive, they're high value items. I'm going to dig into the detail in EasyStock and check what it's saying, give it a manual human eye over the suggestion and either update it or accept it. And again, that data gets exported back into your ERP where you can raise your purchase orders. So they're the three main areas of an inventory optimization tool. But obviously, EasyStock has a host of other clever stuff, other features that we found are obviously really useful. And I've picked out some features here that have been invaluable to our customers to help them with the supply chain disruption that they've seen over the past couple of years. So I'm just going to pick three from here. And the first one being the risk of run out report. So even with a tool like EasyStock, stockouts have been inevitable over the past couple of years because of global material shortages, container shortages, etc. And when you have supply problems, the biggest thing you need to know is what stock items are going to be at risk of running out, when they're likely to run out, and by how much you're going to be short. And EasyStock's risk of run out report provides all this information at the click of a button. You can pull the report whenever you need it. It basically means that you have all the critical information you need to put a plan in place to help alleviate the problems. So that might be, I don't know, fast tracking an emergency order from a supplier, removing items from your website or holding back stock for key accounts. The critical part is having the data in the first place to be able to act in advance. Okay, the second feature is the stock reallocation capabilities. So before ordering an item in EasyStock, the system lets you check if the SKU is available in excess at another site. So you might find that you're running low on an item at one warehouse because there's been some unforeseen demand, but you might have a lot of that item sat at another warehouse because demand's been lower there. And what EasyStock will let you do is identify this stock and reallocate it, which means that you don't have to go to the supplier and place an order, and it also means you don't have to tie up any more cash. You can keep your investment as lean as possible. And then finally, we have order fill up, also called container fill up feature. So for example, with this, if you're bringing shipping containers into the UK and they're on a long lead time, EasyStock will help ensure that you fill up the container with items that have an upcoming demand. So when you're placing an order that's short of its full container capacity, EasyStock will look ahead and recommend items that have a forecasted demand in order to fill up the order. So instead of you manually selecting SKUs that could lead to excess stock, EasyStock actually finds one that have a forecasted demand. Likewise, you can use auto fill up if you deal with smaller local deliveries. So with local deliveries, you might likely have a minimum order value or quantity that you need to hit to prevent paying carriage. And again, EazyStock can recommend SKUs that will take you over that minimum order quantity, which will ensure that, again, you're not investing in items that you don't need, but in ones that will help ensure that you maintain great stock availability. So that's all I'm going to talk about on features today. Very quickly talk about system integration. I'm not going to dwell on this. All I really need to say here is that EazyStock is cloud-based and is therefore easy to integrate with many business systems. In particular, it's great with Pegasus Opera because there is a ready-made connector which makes implementation nice and quick and simple. And once the two systems are talking to each other, the transfer of data is on a daily basis, which ensures that the data in both systems remains up to date and is always accurate. Okay, so the benefits. Let's finish off just looking at some of the benefits of inventory optimization. So whilst a tool like EazyStock is predominantly used by your inventory management or purchasing team, it actually has positive consequences right across the business. Firstly, it's going to deliver much more accurate demand forecasts, and these are going to be dynamically updated based on what's happening in the marketplace. It's going to help you carry the right stock, and the stock classification features are really going to help make sure that you're buying the right stock and you're also making the smartest investments possible in your stock to free up cash whilst also ensuring stock availability. So if you improve your stock availability, hopefully you're going to reduce your risk of stockouts, you're going to reduce your risk of lost sales and keep your customers much happier. Then we have supply chain challenges that have all been quite significant over the past few years. If you can have optimal inventory levels and greater visibility of stock, you're going to be better positioned to deal with any supply or demand volatility. So if there is another Brexit or COVID or whatever else could possibly happen to us in the next few years, you're going to have the data and the tools that you need to react faster and make more informed decisions. And then finally, you're going to have better and more efficient inventory management processes. So if you can improve your inventory planning and your purchasing efficiency, you're going to give your teams more time to do other valuable activities. So they're no longer going to be spending time as a human calculator in Excel. EazyStock's going to do all the clever maths for them. And instead, they can act on the data. If they can work much smarter, it's going to give them more time to be able to go and negotiate with suppliers and also build up better relationships and spend more time with customers. That's it from me. I have left you with Peter Drakely's details, and obviously you have Bruce's details too. Please feel free to reach out, connect on LinkedIn. You'll also find me on LinkedIn. My name is Tracy Baker. Thanks for listening today. And I'll hand back to Bruce to see if there's any questions.
I'm going to kick them off. Anybody else has any other questions, please type it for me in the comment section. But we'll start with the two I have. So first question comes from someone the other day, actually. It is, what is the price point for the product?
Yes, so the price is driven by the inventory value that you put into EazyStock, because that's where you generate the return on investment. So just to give you a guideline, if you put £1 million of inventory into EazyStock, you're looking at about between £12,000 and £15,000 in subscription fee a year. Now, if you consider the type of ROI we generally return on £1 million, it's inventory reductions somewhere between 20 to 40%. As standard. So for a £12,000 investment, you're talking £200,000, £400,000 saving in inventory potentially. I should also say that million's just kind of a ballpark figure. We do businesses with a lot less inventory. We can go right down to 250,000 and then right up to some businesses that are carrying about, I think the top one at the minute is about 35 million of inventory, something like that. So we really do the full range.
Nice one. Thank you very much. I've got another question. It is, what's the average time from buying to implementation to starting to use it?
Yeah, so the implementation process is pretty standardized now. It's tried and tested. We've done it quite a few times, so we really know what we're doing. The main part of the implementation is driven by the time it takes to connect to the ERP system. So there's a bunch of ERPs where we have a connector, including Pegasus Opera. Where we have a connector, generally a project would take around 4 weeks to complete. Where we don't have a connector to the ERP, the project will take somewhere in the region of 6 to 8 weeks, again, typically to get done. So having that connector can kind of really shorten the project process.
Okay, thank you very much. I've just had another question come through. It is, can you give some examples on the inventory policy parameters we can put in the calculation?
Yeah, so the inventory policy parameters, the way our inventory policies work is it moves away from things like stock days. So your traditional inventory policies are things like stock days. I want to carry 30 stock days of safety stock. We can do that as well. We can put those type of basic parameters in. What we do is link your stocking levels and your restocking to your service levels, so your product availability that your customer actually experiences. So the type of thing that goes into our inventory policies are, for this product, I want to achieve a 95% availability, which means I want to be able to say yes to the customer request 95% of the time. Then we build other things in, like how often do you want to refresh that product? Some products you might want to reorder every week. Some products you might want to reorder every month. Some products you might want to order once or twice a year if it's very cheap and very small. So an example there could be oil filters if you're in automotive. Very cheap, very small products. Just get them in. Don't think about them again. So all those parameters kind of feed into the calculation. Then there's a bunch of other things that you can do to kind of have a subtle influence on the calculations. You can do product specific overrides. You can also kind of do an aggregate level policy as well. So it's quite powerful and quite flexible.
Thank you very much.